What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Ultra Street Fighter 2 TV. Once again, I'm your host, UltraSean, and today we're going to talk about the anatomy of a Ragequitter. In today's episode, we're going to talk about just what goes into the making of a Ragequitter. But before we do that, I want to go over just what a Ragequitter is. So, by definition, a Ragequitter is somebody who quits out of a fit of a rage. And yes, I'm being Captain Obvious here. In Ultra Street Fighter 2 terms, it's somebody who leaves the game as it's in progress, mainly due to them getting bodied. Now, this phenomenon is in no way unique to Ultra 2. It's pretty much about all online games in general. But the thing is though, is that in the arcade setting, if you rage quit, you're gonna get your ass laughed all the way out of the building. So why do people do it? It's really simple. They're bad because they lost. And in Ultra's case, there's not really any consequences for doing so. And also, before somebody makes the comment like, oh, they do get penalized because they lose a small amount of BP and PP. Number one, it doesn't obviously work too much on them because they still continue to do it, so that's not really enough of a deterrent. And number two, all that work that you put to beat in a violent Ken whose odds are overwhelmingly stacked against you counts for nothing now. Alright, in this case though, I don't really blame Capcom, but I blame Nintendo's online policy for this, and it really gives rage quitters every incentive to do so. Every incentive. So think about it like this way. If you're doing stupid stuff and there were no consequences for you to continue doing stupid stuff, why would you stop? So with all that being said, let's take a look at the making of a Ragequitter.
Alright, so for this first match, it's usually like a filling out period where you try to see who your opponent is and basically what they can do or what you think they can do. And then, if you feel that you can beat them or not. So in this case, I take a look at his battle points there, and I see that it's only 67. So I'm pretty sure that as Blanca, he doesn't really know too much exactly what he's doing. I could be wrong, but that's the feeling that I get. And in my case, the problem is with the lag on Ultra 2 here, sometimes they can steal victories from you just because your reactions just aren't there. It's really, really hard to react to certain things because of that lag. And I'm not the kind of guy who is like a lag abusing player. I use tactics that will work at the arcade but are a little bit harder to do online. But in this case, I'm like, I don't see that he's doing much of Blanca, so I'll go for some wall dives and just go finish it off because it seems like he's gonna not be able to, put up any more of a fight. So overall, it was actually a pretty simple match, and I just kind of assumed that he picked Blanca just for fun.
So after this match, I'm not really happy with that heavy lag. So I decided to go ahead and switch to Ryu because he's going to give me more bang for the buck online. And in general, online, his options are much safer.
So like I just said earlier, Ryu's online options are pretty safe and you can kind of commit to them without having to worry about too much. So in this case, I did notice that he picked Violent Ken, and I'm like, okay, well, 3155 battle points, so he knows somewhat of what he's doing. But then again, it's Violent Ken, and you can go pretty far while not really knowing the game, just because of those invincible dragon punches. As you can see, he's no doubt trying to use there. So again, in this period, I'm just filling it out and seeing what I can do. That lag means I miss a couple of things, but I decided that, he's just going to keep dashing, so I'll just keep going out there and throwing those hurricane kicks. Not a big problem. So from this first match, I can already see that I don't think I'm going to have a huge problem with him. I may lose one round, but in the end it's not going to matter because I should be able to get the victory. Again, like I said, we use a very good tool to use online to kind of counteract that lag. Whereas with Vega, it becomes exponentially harder. So really my main strategy here is just to avoid that dragon punch, and the rest I should be able to handle. As you can see where I just tossed the super out and it caught him. So that worked out pretty well.
Now, an online Violent Ken can be pretty scary, no matter who the opponent is. Because if you get caught once by that invincible dragon punch, or maybe a quick slide into dragon punch, or pretty much anything, once you get knocked down, it can become really tough to recover. So for the third match, I decided to fight fire with fire.
Pick Violent Ken myself.
Now, I usually don't do that unless the opponent has already picked Violent Ken or Akuma, or if I think that they may be starting off with Violent Ken or Akuma, then I'll pick V-Ken just to make sure that they don't get an easy win.
So this match, once I saw that I picked Violent Ken, now I'm going to go all in 2 as well. And all these points that I've gotten from picking Violent Ken has been specifically from a counter pick. So I don't use him very often, but I just kind of keep the basics in mind. Throw as many jab dragon punches as you can. Slide around as fast as you can while throwing jab dragon punches, and just go ahead and do the super, especially if they don't block down back, because they're going to get hit by it, and it's a decent amount of damage and lots of invincibility. So anyways, the same tactics apply. Just go out there and just mess them real bad as Violent Ken. And really, when it's V-Ken versus V-Ken, the tactic is this: get him before he gets you. That's the end of that. In this matchup, it's quite easy to get just perfects every round. It starts off with a medium dragon punch into a hard dragon punch into the dizzy, and then from there just chain your fierce punch into a heavy dragon punch, and you're done. And you can also see that Violent Ken has crazy comeback potential, because even though I was really low on life, it didn't matter. Just a few moves and boom, that was the end of that. So you're like, yeah, I beat V-Ken, yeah. But then you see the game freeze up, and then you're like, no, wait for it. No! That dude rage quit. Typical.
Now, as a quick side note, the replay function is only available if you finish the actual match. So if the opponent is rage quit, you pretty much have no choice but to either use a captured card in order to document it, or use the Switch's screenshot function to take a quick shot. So now that we've seen the rage quit in action, as well as all the events leading up to it, let's break it down. Mikezilla is completely outmatched in this case. Now, there is a big difference between somebody who knows their character and somebody who knows the matchup. And in a situation like this, who knows the matchup is going to win much more often than not. So Mikezilla had no choice but to try and play some shenanigans, but in the end it just didn't work, and he had no choice but to eat the loss. Alright, so moving on to number 2. Now he switches to his main, or who I think is his main, and I think at this point by now he must know that Violent Ken is top tier. So I go ahead and switch over to Ryu, someone who I feel is better suited for the laggy online gameplay, and I just do what I can to make sure that I get the victory. And in the end, even though he's using his main, he's using Violent Ken, the top tier character, I get the V and he gets bodied. Now, the wheels in his head, I think at this point, are starting to turn a little bit. He's starting to get a little bit angry about this. And last, but definitely not least, number 3. Now, Mikezilla is reeling from those last 2 victories, and he's ready for his rematch, and he's gonna come back and he's gonna beat me. So I decided to go ahead and pull out my not really pocket Violent Ken that I use for this kind of matchup specifically, and I used the flowchart. End of story, a couple of dragon punches, a couple of throws, a super, easy victory for me. I'm about to get the win, but then,
come on!
ladies and gentlemen, you have now gone into the mind of a rage quitter. So as you can see, while rage quitting isn't exactly an epidemic of monumental proportions, it's still something that's not really that fun to deal with, especially if it happens to you. So what do you think? Am I being too harsh on the guy? Did he have a good reason to rage quit? Let me know in the comments below. Now that just about does it for today's episode. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to click that like and subscribe button. Unless of course, you're Mikezilla, in which case you can give it a big thumbs down. And as always, see you guys for the next episode of Ultra Street Fighter 2 TV. UltraSean out.
It's not that important. Okay? Ow.